Diadochi Wars, summarized by Spectrum. Let's go.
Hey everybody, Spectrum here, and today's video is about the Wars of the Diadochi. Now, personally speaking, I love this period in history. If you were to ask me to make a Game of Thrones-like TV series set on a particular historical period, it would always be a series about either the Second Punic War, the fall of the Roman Republic, or the Wars of the Diadochi.
Okay.
Now, Diadochi is just a Greek word for successor, and this term is applied to the generals that succeeded Alexander the Great.
Okay.
It's a shame that this entire period is usually chalked down to, oh well, Alexander died and then his empire was divided by his generals.
Yep.
Because it wasn't that simple.
No,
a lot
of course it
happened.
wasn't.
A lot happened. But I understand the brevity in which the Diadochi are addressed. After all, they ended up getting annexed by the Roman Empire. Except the Seleucids, most of their empire was conquered by the Parthians. But what followed after the death of Alexander the Great makes the backstabbing and betrayals of Game of Thrones look utterly puny by comparison.
Okay,
And it's
let's
a
get
beautiful
into it then.
mess. So from the moment Alexander died, there were already two different camps. One, led by Meleager, supported that Aridaeus, Alexander's brother, should succeed him. And the other, led by Perdiccas,
Commander of
who
the...
supported waiting
That was
until
way
the birth.
too quick. Hold up. Cavalry, Alexander gave him his rank. Okay. You got all that, yeah?
Yeah.
Who supported waiting until
One
the
more
birth of
time.
Alexander's child, Alexander. The two reached a compromise with a joint rule of both Aridaeus and Alexander's yet-to-be-born child, who turned out to be a boy, Alexander IV.
Okay.
And Perdiccas was made regent.
Yep.
And then Perdiccas betrayed Meleager and had him and his supporters killed. The generals who supported Perdiccas were rewarded in the event known as the Partition of Babylon, by becoming satraps of various parts of the empire. The division turned out to be something like this. In the meantime, news of Alexander's death reached Greece, who promptly revolted, as did a group of Greek settlers in the east and Cappadocia. All revolts were put down though, as Antipater dealt with Greece, Phaethon dealt with the revolt in his province, and Perdiccas and Eumenes.
Here we go.
Alexander's personal secretary, surprisingly good general. Okay.
Dealt with the Cappadocians. This last revolt helped forge an alliance between Perdiccas and Eumenes, by the way.
Bros for
As
life.
it was very clear, none of these generals trusted each other, including Perdiccas, and soon he got too ambitious. As soon as he had the chance to become a part of the royal family himself, he took it. He had married Nicaea, daughter of Antipater, but Alexander's sister Cleopatra wanted to marry him, so he planned to have Nicaea discarded as soon as possible and wrote that to Cleopatra. The letter was intercepted by the governor of Phrygia, Antigonus the One-Eyed.
Okay, here we go. Quick pause.
One-eyed, strapped up was blah 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 blah, ultra
Ultra
ambitious.
Who then politely informed Antipater. And so the two, alongside the governor of Egypt, Ptolemy,
I know a bit about Ptolemy. Bulgaria, scammer, actually pretty content in life. Oh, content in life. I see.
and the highly experienced general Craterus revolted against Perdiccas, which officially started after Ptolemy stole Alexander's body as it was being transferred back to Macedonia.
Oh!
In response,
Yeah,
His
yeah.
bodyguard nicked it.
Yeah, his bodyguard nicked it, and I also believe that's the descendants. Cleopatra is a descendant of his.
Perdiccas
Pretty
marched
sure.
to Egypt, all the while Eumenes would attempt to delay things against Antigonus. Eumenes, who had been merely Alexander's former secretary and had no prior military experience, stunned everyone by actually winning in his front of the war and
Shit.
killing Craterus in battle.
Oh,
But
shit.
Perdiccas' campaign in Egypt failed, and in response, his own generals, Python, Antigonus, and Seleucus, remember that last name, it'll be very important,
Okay.
murdered Perdiccas. Antipater's forces repartitioned the empire, which turned out to
Nothing
be
surprises
mostly
me back in
rewarding
times.
Perdiccas'
No,
murders
definitely
with their own
Oh, he's a bastard.
provinces. In the meanwhile, Antigonus successfully bested Eumenes and holed him up in Nola, where Eumenes would resist for over a year. Besides that, peace at large was re-established. Then Antipater died. So Antigonus, now in charge of the war, offered Eumenes to lift the siege if he accepted being the governor of Cappadocia and Antigonus' second in command, which Eumenes accepted. The successor to Antipater was Polyperchon, who was being challenged by Antipater's son Cassander.
Any involved with Alexander, I was confused.
The worst of them all.
In fact, Cassander was building an army and even allied with Antigonus. So, in response, Polyperchon sent Eumenes an irresistible offer: command over the Silver Shields, a unit force composed of Alexander's veterans.
Yep.
Nice.
So, backstabbing Antigonus, Eumenes accepted. Antigonus was, understandably, a little furious with this, and so tried chasing Eumenes, but by the time he reached Syria, Eumenes was already deep in Mesopotamia, about to ally with many of the eastern satraps in Susa, who would give him a massive army. The two marched around for a while throughout Mesopotamia, Babylonia, Susiana, and Media, until they finally faced each other in the Battle of Paraitaki,
And who won?
where Eumenes won.
Yeah.
The next year they fought in the Battle of Gebien, which Eumenes also won, but had his camp plundered and used as a bargain tool to have the Silver Shields betray him. Which they did, handing him over to Antigonus, who, after some consideration, had him executed.
Yeah,
In the
I
meantime,
remember that. I
Polyperchon
remember
was
that in another
campaigning in
series I
Greece
watched.
to force the cities to take his side against Cassander and Antigonus.
Okay.
He tried taking Athens, but Cassander sailed there and forced him to try something different. So he went to Megalopolis and besieged the city. He failed, so all of Greece sided against him. He retreated to Epirus, where he joined forces with Alexander IV's mother, Olympias, and re-invaded Macedon. In return, they captured Aridaeus and had him executed. Then Cassander arrived, took Macedon, had Olympias executed, and
Fucking
Polyperchon
hell.
escaped to the Peloponnese, where he would remain almost irrelevant. Now, Antigonus had control over Asia Minor and the eastern provinces. Among the Diadochi, he was at the top, to the point he posed a threat to all the other ones. Guess how long until they all turned on him? Well,
not long at all.
it happened immediately the
Yeah.
next year. It all started
year,
as soon
a year,
as
not a
Antigonus
week.
found himself ruler of the East. He began executing and imprisoning governors, and eventually, even a valuable ally like Seleucus,
There we go.
There we go.
who had aided
Oh
him
my god, that is way too quick. There's more writing on that one as well. But that's the only bit of advice. Just make these a tad longer. But then I guess we can pause it so I get it. Originally a nobody, low-key, the most capable of them all, Slayer of the Diadochi. Seriously, he's directly involved in 4 deaths.
I see you. You haven't liked the video yet. Why not? Go on. Go like it. While you're at it, you know you want to subscribe. And if you want to go to our social medias, all the links you need are in the description box down below. And you might as well head over to our Patreon as well, where you can get extra bonus content if you're enjoying this. That link's in the description box down below. But we'll get straight back into the video. Love you guys.
who had aided him greatly, fled to Egypt in fear for his life, where he was pleasantly received by Ptolemy. A coalition formed by Ptolemy, the governor of Caria Asander, the governor of Thrace Lysimachus,
Pause it.
Straptrap of Thraeus, liked by Alexander, decent general. Okay?
and even his former ally
At least
Cassander
these ones are easier
joined
to read.
forces in order to prevent Antigonus' total control. Antigonus struck first, taking Syria and Phoenicia, ordering the Phoenician cities to build him an armada. He also sent his nephew Ptolemaeus to fight Asander in Asia, and a close friend, Aristodemus, to Greece to aid Polyperchon. Ptolemaeus did really well for himself, so Antigonus thought it'd be a great time for him to come to Asia Minor and finish the job. So
Okay.
he gathered his main army and marched there, leaving a substantial force under his son Demetrius to defend Syria.
Okay.
Son of Antigonus, loyal to his father, first of the Epicononi.
But Ptolemy surprised him by re-establishing control of Cyprus and raiding Cilicia. When Demetrius arrived, Ptolemy was already back in Egypt and about to march into Antigonid lands. The two would meet their armies near Gaza, where the forces of Ptolemy, alongside Seleucus, won an overwhelming victory, pushing Demetrius away from Syria and winning the lands of Judea and parts of Phoenicia.
Okay.
This opened the possibility to take the eastern territories from Antigonus, so Ptolemy gave Seleucus some troops so he could do just that. Then he heard Demetrius had returned to Syria with a small army, and believing Demetrius was finished, he sent a small contingent under one of his men, Chyles, to deal with the remnants of the Antigonid forces. But to everybody's surprise, when
They
the
get
two
slaughtered.
sides met, Demetrius won. In the meantime, Antigonus had defeated Asander. This is where Asander's name stops being mentioned in the historical records, by the way, so no one knows exactly what happened to him. Most likely, he died. After that,
I wonder what happened.
Mad.
Yeah.
Antigonus went back to Syria, rejoined with his son, and retook the lost territory from Ptolemy. He pressed forward and was about to invade Egypt, but then he was sidetracked by a campaign against the local Nabateans. It went nowhere, so he signed a treaty with the Nabateans so he could focus on Egypt. Then he heard the news that Seleucus had reconquered Babylonia, which put his hold over the eastern half of the empire at severe risk.
Yeah, so he
So
has
he
to go back
cancelled
and
his
deal with
plans
that.
to invade Egypt and signed a peace treaty with the other Diadochi. As soon as that happened, Cassander took his chance to murder Alexander IV, the supposed king of the empire, and his mother Roxana. So now the Macedonian Empire has no ruler.
Literally kills Alexander's son.
And his mum.
Yeah, such a dickhead, man. Killed the whole line.
Rough.
The whole family
Surprisingly, the generals that actually ruled over its lands didn't acknowledge it just yet. Anyway, now at peace, Antigonus took this opportunity to fight Seleucus, and what followed was the Babylonian War. A war which we don't know much about, but we can assume it was one where Seleucus, vastly outnumbered, shouldn't be able to win, and Antigonus could not afford to lose. And yet, Seleucus won,
No
and
way.
Antigonus lost. That led to Seleucus gaining the entire East. A catastrophic blow for Antigonus, and one
Oof,
that drastically
indeed.
changed
Oof
the
is
balance
an
of power,
understatement.
as Seleucus went from a minor player to arguably the biggest player. It increasingly looked as if Antigonus, surrounded by enemies, was doomed. But Seleucus was busy with consolidating his eastern gains, and then with a war in India, which gave Antigonus time to look at the west, where Ptolemy had been expanding into the Aegean as well as Cyprus. And so the war resumed, with Antigonus having one last chance. While Seleucus was distracted, he could focus on defeating his western rivals for good before focusing once again on the east. Antigonus sent Demetrius to Greece, where he took Athens away from Cassander. Then he turned his attention to Ptolemy and his hold over Cyprus, where he won a decisive victory in the Battle of Salamis, granting Antigonus
so slowly
undisputed
getting these
control over the
It's
Mediterranean.
back.
Antigonus, with renewed confidence, claimed himself to be king, a not-so-subtle implication that he intended to be the true successor to Alexander. But the other Diadochi refuted this, and each made similar proclamations soon after. So finally,
It just takes one of them to declare themselves for the other ones to go, oh, if that's what we're doing, then I'm one too.
Why do they always do these types of things, man? It just don't make sense.
Fucking greed. Greed.
in
That's what I
306 BC, 17 years after Alexander the Great's death, his empire was officially defunct. Though in reality it had already been for a few years at this point. Antigonus tried following his son's success at Salamis with another invasion of Egypt, but after some minor skirmishes decided to pull back. So instead he tried a different target, the island of Rhodes, as the Rhodians had friendly relations with
Decent
Ptolemy,
island.
who, alongside Cassander and Lysimachus, supplied the island with their own troops.
see.
After a
Careful
brutal
your
siege, the
inclusives.
Rhodians struck a deal with Demetrius. He would lift the siege so long as the Rhodians supported the Antigonids against their
Okay.
enemies,
Yeah,
with the
interesting.
exception of Ptolemy. This deal was just fine by Demetrius, who took this chance to land in Greece and gather anti-Cassander support, using it to defeat Cassander in battle.
Okay.
Cassander tried
Right,
to
strong.
negotiate for peace, but this was rejected by Antigonus.
How
So
about
in desperation, he called for help against the Antigonids. And finally, Lysimachus makes his first big move, overrunning much of western Anatolia.
Shit.
But he found himself isolated and in serious trouble, and it did look as if Antigonus was about to get rid of another rival.
God.
But it was right here that time ran out.
Mm.
Seleucus had returned from the east, arriving just in time to save Lysimachus from disaster, and utterly crushing Antigonus in the Battle of Ipsus, where the aging general died in combat, though his son Demetrius still lived, escaping
What's
to
he gonna
Greece.
try and do?
With the death of Antigonus, his territory was divided among his rivals. Things remained calm for
Nothing.
a while after that, but
His
then
son
Cassander
gets
died,
nothing.
and his two sons began quarreling with one another over Macedon. One of them made the mistake of asking Demetrius for aid, who promptly took this chance to invade Macedon and seize it for himself. Demetrius ruled Macedon for a while, but got himself embroiled in a war against Lysimachus and Pyrrhus, the king of Epirus. More on him on another video.
Okay.
He tried to go to the east, asking Seleucus for support, who promptly took him captive instead. His son and new ruler of Macedon, Antigonus Gonatas, tried to have his father released, but to no avail, and Demetrius died in captivity a few years into it.
Fucking
With
hell.
Demetrius dealt with, Lysimachus and Seleucus began falling out with one
Yep,
another,
peak.
as Lysimachus drove Pyrrhus from his...
I mean, to be fair, what did you think was going to happen when you go to the army that killed your dad
Yeah.
and ask for help? Like, no, brother, you're a bit of an idiot.
share of Macedonian territory. This was bad for the balance of power, and so war began. While this was happening, Ptolemy died. Seleucus and Lysimachus would meet their armies in Lydia in the Battle of Corpidium, which Seleucus won and Lysimachus died. The new king of Macedon was now, of all people, Ptolemy's eldest son, who was not the king of Egypt, as he was passed over by Ptolemy to a younger son.
Okay.
Both kings were named Ptolemy because, of course, they were. Seleucus went to Macedon to chill out, where he was promptly murdered at the orders of Ptolemy, king of Macedon. The death of Lysimachus had left a hole in the Danube, and soon enough Gauls were ravaging throughout Macedonia and Greece. These Gauls killed Ptolemy, king of Macedon, and later invaded Anatolia. Antiochus I, the new Seleucid emperor, defeated these Gauls, and they would eventually settle in central Anatolia for good, becoming known as the Galatians. As for Macedon, Antigonus had reclaimed the throne. Finally, some 50 years after Alexander's death, some semblance of stability was reached, with 3 successor states remaining. Macedon, which would be ruled by the Antigonids, the territories of Egypt, southern Syria, and some lands in the southern coast of Asia would be ruled by the Ptolemies, and the east at large would be ruled by the descendants of Seleucus and Antiochus in what was later known as the Seleucid Empire.
Yeah.
Thus
so
began the
3 there.
period known as the Hellenistic period, a period where Greek is the dominant culture throughout the eastern Mediterranean, and was marked by the fragile balance of power between the 3 successor states. Then Rome happened and they all fell one day.
Rome
Hope
come
you enjoyed
along
this
and
little
fucking
video.
whip their big
Leave
dick
your
around.
thoughts in the comment section below, and if you're not subscribed, then by all means, do so. I'd really appreciate it.
Nice.
Definitely go over to their channel and subscribe and check out some of their other videos. That link's going to be in the description box down below. That was actually quite a nice little video. It was quite enjoyable. Yeah, we thoroughly enjoyed it. We hope you guys did as well. If you did, you know what you need to do. You need to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and go over to our Patreon because there's extra bonus content over there as well. Links in the description box down below. We'll catch you in the next video.